Hello, all my YouTube peeps, all my folks out there in YouTube land, in the chat room, and my lurkers, all the folks that will view it later on Memorex. Glad to have you with me today. It is an overcast day here in Indiana today. It's been raining a little bit and a little breeze blowing. It's supposed to be more rain coming in. A wet day here today, but hey, we can use a little bit of rain once in a while as long as it don't try to, like some places has had going on. My goodness gracious. We got a lot of news to talk about today, but I'm going to start this out with the internet takeover. And I have put a video in the comment section for y'all to click on if you have not seen it. It's called Action Required, Stop the Internet Takeover Now. And it is an extremely good video. It tells a lot of the history on the internet. It's only about 20 minutes long. It explains what exactly is going on here and why this is important to get this thing stopped. So you can view that at your leisure. I recommend that video for everybody to see so they understand a little bit more about what's going on with this. And, you know, if you like what we're doing here, Level-Headed News, be sure to give it a thumbs up and be sure to share it around so other people get informed on what's going on. This is going to run probably over an hour today because I got a lot of news to bring to you to tell you some of the stuff that's going on. I could easily go probably like 6 hours with everything that is going on. We're not doing that. I'm going to try to keep it to about 90 minutes here. How is this blowing up at once? The first thing we've got here is off of rickwells.us. And my little hamster's going to wear his little legs out today running to get these URLs brought up for me to tell you about. This one is off constitutionrising.com, rickwells.us. It says Dobbs, state to save internet, again doing Congress's job for them. At issue is thief-in-chief Obama giving away our internet. It belongs to Americans, not him or his globalist crony recipients. But crooks don't worry about details such as those. Note that once again, it is the states who have been forced to enemy in the White House when the gutless Congress refuses to take action and actually represent the American people. Reports that 4 state attorney generals are now suing the Obama administration to stop the transfer of the internet oversight, saying the move threatens online freedom of expression, enterprise, and speech. The suit comes just days before the administration wants the United States to relinquish control of the internet's domain name system. That deadline is midnight, October the 1st. Dobb points out that Congress failed to delay the transfer, so now Arizona, Nevada, Oklahoma, and the state of Texas have stepped up to stop the move and stop President Obama. Of course, states have often found themselves in this administration forced to take matters into their own hands because the administration has acted well beyond its powers and has failed to enforce federal laws as well, including, of course, immigration laws. The point that the state of Texas has filed more than 40 lawsuits against the Obama administration, including in 2014, when 26 states sued the president over his executive fiat to unilaterally keep illegal immigrants from being deported. Dobbs gives a brief rundown of some of the litigation that has keeping this outlaw regime in any form of restraints, and it has largely been the duty of the states to do the job that Congress won't. As for stopping a president from giving away what is not his to begin with, it's unclear whether liberal courts will side with the anti-American impulses of a lame duck president whose principal legacy has been one of confusion and indifference to American interests. Mr. Dobbs says the Obama administration's planned transfer of oversight of the internet set to take effect 3 days from now. Well, actually, it's tomorrow for us, October the 1st. However, contemptible his administration's record is on so much, the impotence and the acquiescence of our courts and Congress throughout the past 7.5 years is every bit as disappointing. He adds, and if ever America needed new leadership, it is now. And now courts will have to muster the courage and integrity to stop the giveaway of American responsibility and control of the internet until Congress and Senate have the opportunity to express the will of the American people as a democratic republic ought, a novel concept in these waning days of the Obama reign. So there is that article. The next one I have is off of the All News Pipeline. Bring it on up here. Okay, it says, you should be worried, warns FCC Commissioner on Internet giveaway. China already drafting totalitarian laws to govern the Internet. Does the headline seem overly dramatic? It isn't. Of the U.S. oversight of the Internet is not just the latest on the free speech rights of guaranteed Americans under the U.S. Constitution, but it is the culmination of every single attack on freedom we have been witnessing over the last decades. Unless Congress steps up and prevents the turnover of Internet oversight to foreign governments who might not share our values, meaning free speech, on October the 1st, 2016, Barack Obama, who has consistently attacked our constitutional rights from freedom of religion, arms, will have the final nail in the coffin of freedom of speech. When the Federal Communications Commission, FCC, commissioner publicly states, you should be worried, as he did on Wednesday's show, a smart person would sit up and take notice. Via Breitbart says, Pei said this proposal is to essentially give up the U.S. oversight role that it's had for the last 20 years, basically for the entire commercial lifespan of the internet, to a company called ICANN, which is an international organization, which includes a number of foreign countries. And it is an unprecedented move that, as Mr. DeMitt pointed out, is irreversible. Once we give up this oversight role, we can't get it back. He added that internet oversight is a case of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Pei further stated, if you cherish free expression and free speech rights generally, you should be worried. I think oversight roles going to be ceded to potentially foreign governments who might not share our values. Pei and others vehemently criticized Obama's internet giveaway, that as of October 1st, 2016, readers will not be able to access their favorite sites. They are saying this giveaway is irreversible and the beginning of the end of Americans' free speech as we know it, because control will be handed over to a global body, including many countries that have no free speech rights. According to Epoch Times, a New York-based newspaper owned by Chinese Americans opposed to the communist regime in China, over the last 2 years, Chinese leaders have drafted an authoritarian set of laws that governs every facet of the internet. Imagine that they have been preparing for years, which leads us to the conclusion that this was a pre-planned, scheduled event made for no other reason than to stifle free speech in America. Obama couldn't do it any other way, so he is once again handing our sovereign rights as a nation ruled under the U.S. Constitution to countries hostile to free speech. Frank Gaffney of Center for Security Policy is also issuing the same type of warnings, stating what they're prepared to do is to cede or surrender the last vestige of American control or even influence over what is done with critical functions of the internet. It gets pretty arcane, but the point is, if you think that the freedom of the internet, whether it is the ability of people to communicate freely, information on it, or whether you think of it as an engine for free enterprise, let alone if you understand the contribution that it makes these days to national security, including, by the way, the operations of our critical infrastructure, you will understand that the United States retaining a measure of quality control as to what's going on with how the internet is populated with names and numbers, domains, websites, and the like is the thing. And for absolutely no good reason other than people or countries, Russia, China, and Saudi Arabia and Iran and North Korea don't want us to have any say in this and would like to be able to change things around so that they can not only restrict the things the internet does to help their own people become familiar with the terrible they're being subjected to at the hands of their totalitarian or authoritarian regimes, but they want to take those freedoms, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of enterprise away from us as well. Also points out that Congress can stop this by issuing a continuing resolution banning the transfer from occurring on October 1st, 2016. No matter what side of the political aisle one sits on, now is the time to contact your House of Representatives and your senators, stand up and speak as one, because while the mainstream media attempts to ignore the ramifications of letting regimes like China, Iran, Russia, Saudi Arabia literally control the internet, others are quite aware of what is coming. Ban of free speech over the internet. News wrote on September 21st, 2016, ICANN is not bound by the First Amendment, which ICANN CEO and President Goran Marby admitted in a recent Senate hearing. Applies only to the government. So if the government is out of the picture, the First Amendment is too. And that means that ICANN would be free to regulate internet speech by restricting which websites can gain access to internet-based free speech. Without congressional interference, America is about to be shoved back into the days before the internet became a place where Americans could share knowledge and news that mainstream media, as a propaganda arm of the government, as they controlled everything Americans were told, hiding anything the government didn't want said. For years, we have been watching verbal and physical attacks on free speech zones being created across college campuses. We have seen it in the victimhood mentality of social justice as warriors claiming free speech is hate speech if they do not agree with the opinions stated. Complaints about a crucifix Christ poster has been deemed a legitimate hate bias complaint because it represents oppression and hate of the LGBT community. We have seen the Obama administration target and label critics using the IRS to attack Tea Party and patriot groups, calling any criticism of his immigration policy hate speech and opposition to his settlement policies as xenophobia, any objection to his ideology labeled racism. Of the political aisle must also accept a certain amount of blame as well, because we have often stood down from conflict thinking we're above it, and observers would see the lack of common sense coming from liberal warriors. But what we have actually done is allow only one voice to be heard and repeatedly hammered home until their assertions became perceived reality. For example, I wrote an article the other day about social justice warriors creating chaos at a meeting being held by a conservative group on a college campus. But the conservative group actually invited the to attend, allowed them to disrupt their meeting, thinking they could have civil discussion. What ended up happening is SJWs, with their pathetic victimhood mentality, went in, asked questions that I already knew the answers to, and like they were the victim when they didn't agree with the answers. Bottom line, the attacks on free speech have been ongoing for decades, and Obama's internet giveaway is the culmination of everything socialists and communists have been working up to on both sides. To the SWJ crowd, don't ask questions you know the answers to, so you can just act like some type of victim when you get those answers, because as we have noted of late, conservatives and the alt-right are fed up and sick and tired of hearing your complaints and accusations because you can't handle the truth or deal with reality. If you believe in something, stand up for it and quit walking away because you don't want to you don't want to get your hands dirty, because you're giving them exactly what they want. Call Congress today. Stand up, justice warrior tomorrow. Stay calm, cool, and collected, and let them show their true colors when they lose their minds and start name calling or playing the victim. Anything, every single day, to take on this battle, whether it is for your for our free speech rights, our freedom of religion rights, our Second Amendment rights, or any issue that is important to you. If we don't say enough is enough and start fighting back, America is doomed. It's past time we take the battle to them, and remember, if in the pig pen, expect to get muddy. Just so the oncoming economic nuclear winter comes as no surprise, over the mounting evidence that the internet as we know it will be commandeered by globalist censors beginning midnight October the 1st, when an entirely new era of the internet will begin. Originally, President Obama promised that the Fed's antitrust protected internet corporation for assigned names and numbers, or ICANN, would not involve the United Nations. Was this yet again a naive move on an incompetent president of the United States, or has this been the plan all along? Time and time again, Congress has failed to pass draconian laws to control the internet. The Communications of Decency Act of 1996, the Intellectual Property Enforcement Act of 2007, the Cybersecurity Act, the Protect IP Act of 2011, and SOPA, to name a few, all failed miserably against the ironclad integrity of the First Amendment. The globalists scurrying to their den of iniquity would hear none of it. The internet must be controlled. Their very fortunes and lives depend on it. The public knows too much already. Control of the internet had to be torn from the protection of the U.S. Constitution. That article on this. And in case you come in late, I do have a video listed in the description of this video for you to click on that will give you a lot more information about what's going on with this ordeal. Your leisure. Okay, the next one is off the gatewaypundit.com. It says, urgent. Obama giving away the internet October 1st. Call Congress now. Update. 4 states sue to postpone. And I'm not going to read this one to you because it's pretty much just what I've already read you in the last couple of articles. It's just another one to hammer in the idea in your head. Congress has got to be called. This has a number to the U.S. Capitol switchboard in it. It's 202-224-3121. Capitol switchboard. So you can call to get in touch with your member of Congress. And again, that's 202-224-3121. Or not part of the solution to this by making your phone calls. This is your opportunity to stand up and have your voice be heard here and see if we can fight this thing. We've got to get our Congress to do their jobs. The next one that I have to roll up here, it's off of minrick.com. Calls American police officers special. It says many conservatives have problems with the United Nations. It's ineffective at stopping wars and does nothing to protect freedom. And now the United Nations, I'll get the ad to go away here. Smoke. On it, and then it pops this stuff up in your face. My goodness gracious. Okay. Have problems with the United Nations. It's ineffective at stopping wars and does nothing to protect freedom. And now the United Nations, which American taxpayers pay for, has called recent and in America and demanded that the United States provide reparations for a history that includes slavery. The panel claims are not only owed, but for mass incarceration as well, a term leftists commonly use to gloss over mass criminality within certain socio-economic non. And it says Here's the real kicker, though. The report claims that contemporary police killings and the trauma that they create are reminiscent of past racial terror of lynching, which boasts such human rights loving members as Russia, China, Cuba, Saudi Arabia, is concerned that human rights of blacks in America is at the same level as the days of slavery. Police officers are racial terrorists carrying out high-tech lynchings through the use of their firearms. Word insane. Why are American taxpayers footing the bill for this? The reparations seem a highly unlikely option, as the United Nations groups are non-binding and unlikely to influence anyone in Washington. That UN needs to be run out of here. So, in what we do, this is a republic, but it's obviously part of the agenda for the NWO, so they just allow them in here. One of the first things that we need to do as Americans is run that bunch out on a rail. The next one that we have here is off New American. It says UN adopts education plan to indoctrinate children in globalism. This doesn't hammer home what I just said. I don't know. It says the United Nations summit in Korea this week adopted a global action plan demanding a planetary education regime children around the world into social justice warriors and sustainability-minded global citizens. That means the UN-directed global education must promote integrated development of the whole person, including the including the formation of their ethics, values, and spirituality. The final document declared the global citizenship program with definitions be incorporated in curriculum should also indoctrinate children so that they understand their responsibilities to protect the planet and promote what the UN and its member governments consider to be common good. The controversial action plan approved by the UN's propaganda department, did you hear that? UN's propaganda department, and a group of largely government-funded non-governmental organizations, NGOs, on June the 1st in Gyeongju, Republic of Korea, is aimed at helping the UN impose its Agenda 2030 scheme to transform the world. In fact, the title of the summit gave away the agenda: Education for Global Citizenship, Achieving the Sustainable Development of Goals Together. And has documented extensively the UN Agenda 2030 plan, also known as the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, was approved by governments last year as a roadmap toward global control tyranny from national and international wealth redistribute to care and legal abortion for all. The controversial Agenda 2030 vows repeatedly to leave no one behind. Globalists and the UN know that to achieve their vision of global totalitarianism, the minds of the young must be captured via education. Agenda 2030 actually has the entire goal dedicated to UN-guided education, and so the latest summit in Korea, organized by the UN Department of Public Information, or UNDPI, was aimed at defending that aim, or what that education regime will look like. And now NGOs can help. Education is a human right essential to well-being and dignity, and is the key to achieving Agenda 2030, reads the action plan adopted this week. Further, an ethos of global citizenship is required in order to fulfill people-centered, universal, and planet-sensitive development framework. In the spirit of global citizenship, the document declares that our primary identity is that of human beings, but the agenda is much broader than attacking national nationalism and patriotism. The UNDPI and the AstroTurf NGOs that surrounded, styling themselves civil society, explained that what they call education must also be about more than what people normally think of as education: literacy, numeracy, and so on. In the UN's view, according to the, I'm sorry, I'm not from Korea, so I don't know how to pronounce these names. It's Gyno Jew Action Plan. I don't know. Uh, adopted in Korea, education must advance the cause of global citizenship. That means a lot more than one might think, too. Among other points, this education for global citizenship must promote integrated development of the whole person, emotionally, ethically, intellectually, physically, socially, and spiritually. Action plan declares. Emphasis, of course, parents, families, communities, tribes, churches, and more have traditionally been responsible for much of that. When or under what authority government-run, UN-approved schools became responsible for children's physical, ethical, spiritual, emotional, and social development was not made clear. The implementation, though, should trouble anyone who values liberty, diversity, national sovereignty. The education pushed by the UN must also be with an understanding of our roles, rights, and responsibilities for the common good in service to humanity and the advancement of a culture of peace, nonviolence, freedom, justice, and equality. The action plan continued using the common good that has been the rallying us tyrants. The global education must uh, inculcate, I don't know, a sense of care for the earth, reverence for the independent kinship of all life, and stewardship of all ecological systems for further generations. It should also strengthen the societal relationships among individuals, institutions, communities, state, humanity, and the planet. And finally, it should nurture a sense of solidarity and empathy in order to end poverty, protect the planet, ensure human rights, and foster prosperous and fulfilling lives for all. Not well versed in globalist speak. All that might sound fine and dandy. However, when the UN's agenda is examined more closely, the real agenda becomes more clear. Consider one point among many what the UN means when it speaks of human rights. In Article 29 of the UN's Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the government signatories claim rights can be limited by law under the guise of everything from public order. In other words, you have no rights, only privileges. The same article claims that everyone has duties to the community. Freedoms may in no case be exercised contrary to the purpose and privileges of the United Nations. Or compare that to the U.S. Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, which outline and protect God-given inalienable rights. Down the Global Action Plan explains the agenda intends to shape every aspect of human life and civilization. Education for global citizenship is an essential strategy to address global challenges as well as to promote gender equality, facilitate and eradication of poverty and hunger, build skills, eliminate corruption, and prevent violence, including violent extremism, the document says. It promotes truly sustainable production and consumption, migrating climate change, protecting our waters and biodiversity, and preserving indigenous knowledge. Tradition and individual cultures get in the way of that agenda for the UN to find human rights and global citizenship, then educational understanding of those things will have to be enhanced, the action plan declares. The document also makes clear that this must be a worldwide effort, saying the global citizenship Scheming must be incorporated in school curricula nationwide. Sustainable quality education, as defined by the UN, must provide to all people in the original. The signatories work at the local level too, to incorporate education for global citizenship in educational systems. Action plan developed at the 66th United Nations Department of Public Information, DPI, non-governmental organization, NGO, conference, also committed to pushing global education that promotes a number of controversial concepts. We commit to an education that teaches conflict resolution, a deep appreciation for diversity, ethical reasoning, gender equality, human rights and responsibilities, independence, multilingual and multicultural competence, social justice, sustainable development, and values, it said. Those values, of course, are very unlikely to reflect the values of most parents around the world, whether they be Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, or any other major religious tradition. Instead, the values will be the values guiding the UN globalism, Svedo, socialism, and more. And this goes on. If you want to read the whole thing, I've read, probably half of it here. So yeah, I think we kind of get the gist. That, which kind of leads me into the next one that I have, newamerican.com. And we're waiting for the little hamster to catch up here. And okay, it says Obama's education secretary is concerned about homeschooling. Do that UN thing that we just read because they're wanting all the kids where they can indoctrinate them. It says, in a widely anticipated establishment crackdown on educational freedom may have been speaking at a breakfast with reporters, Obama's education secretary, pro-Common Core activist John King, he was concerned that some home-educated children were not getting the breadth of instructional experience they would get at a traditional school. Obama bureaucrat acknowledged that many homeschool families are doing it well. He also repeated the debunked smear that homeschooled children lacked opportunities for socialization. Critics, though, promptly lambasted King for his naive and malicious comments, suggesting that, if anything, he ought to be concerned about children in public schools. He even offered to help educate Obama's education chief on the issue. Controversial remarks about home education were made during hosted by the Christian Science Monitor. The Monitor's website did not report about the home education comments. Several other outlets, including Politico, did so. Politico, King said he was concerned that homeschooled students are not getting the range of options that are good for all kids. He also claimed to worry that students who are homeschooled kind of rapid instructional experience they would get in school unless parents are very intentional about it. He said school experience includes building relationships with peers, teachers, and mentors, something that he claimed to achieve in homeschooling unless parents focus on it. On and on and on and on, if you want to read that whole thing. Think what he's doing is he's trying to herd this into the UN agenda, is my take on it. Most children I know, and I will admit I'm fairly limited, but I know a few people that homeschool their kids and have in the past. The kids get far better education. They get a lot more socialization, and they get socialization in a correct way rather than turning them loose and letting them run wild after school. They are sent, they go to places like museums and things to educate them on other aspects rather than turning them loose and letting them beat the crap out of each other and they can get into. They are supervised, and they're actually taught something instead of indoctrinated into the where you got a whole bunch of kids, 30, 40, 50 kids crammed in a class. Nobody gets any individual attention. Stuff thrown at him. He wants to speed up the process of education. For what purpose? You get it sped up in the public schools and kids get left out. Kids that can't keep up with what's going on. They need a little bit more instruction in a homeschool system. You get the individual attention. So yeah, it sounds like he's just trying to herd everybody into that UN deal to me. The next one we have here is off of investmentwatchblog.com. It says UN sends out or deleting it, saying it was an error. What kind of UN relationship do we have when they try to fix our election? Is George Soros involved as well? And it says this evidence of unprecedented collision. Powerful people are terrified that Clinton is going to go down for her crimes and take them with her. Hope is to put her in power so they can manipulate side. And the tweet, I'm just a little bit more here. Okay, the tweet says from the UN News Center, it says the 8 million Americans abroad could stop Trump, make sure they all vote, share, and then it gives a website in the tweet posted yesterday at 9:14 p.m. This article says and shows, but if what I've read to you today doesn't make you anti-UN, then I don't know. There's no hope for you. I'll get the next one up here. Off the All News Pipeline. It says 100%. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's what it says. 100% proof emerges next debate already being fixed for Hillary Clinton. Open debate coalition deleting top-rated questions from Americans regarding Benghazi and the email scandal. On Sunday, October the 9th at 9 p.m., the nation will once again be on TV for round 2 of our very own thriller, the presidential debate featuring Donald Trump versus war criminal Clinton. Trump tells reporters today he'll hit harder next time around after many supporters claimed he handled the counterists with kid gloves. We get absolute proof today that he next presidential debate is already being fixed in the war criminals' favor. News story from The Atlantic tells us the second presidential debate will try something new, and ordinary Americans like you and I will be able to submit questions that Trump or Clinton might have to answer if they get enough upvotes from other ordinary Americans like you and I. We already have 100% proof that the questions are being fixed in the favor of Clinton, with questions that quickly became the highest voted being the website. However, the Open Debate Coalition that is running this something new was formed by globalists back in 2008, and their leadership board and many of those giving testimonials about the organization looks to of war criminals and the Hillary Clinton fan club. After visiting the website and being delightfully surprised to find that 2 highest voted questions, both details of the 4 Americans who died because of Clinton in Benghazi, as well as tough questions about Clinton's deleted emails. A visit only 2 hours later found both of those questions completely deleted by the Open Debate Coalition, despite page stating the Open Debate Coalition hopes to make the debates more representative of the will of the people. Why might the Open Debate Coalition just delete the highest ranked questions that happen to deal with their candidates' war crimes and crimes against humanity that have led to the deaths of tens of thousands of people around the world and possibly put millions of Americans' lives in danger? Once again, we get 100% proof that liberals and globalists are talking out of both sides of their mouths and only care about opinions and free speech when their own opinions or free speech is at stake. We urge you now to take the time to contact the Open Debate Coalition yourself at info@opendebatecoalition.com. One called press@opendebater. Let's see. Try this again. press@opendebatecoalition.com. At opendebatecoalition.com. volunteer@opendebatecoalition.com or join@opendebatecoalition.com to voice your own opinions or attempt to ask a question here. And there's a link you can click in this article. Open Debate of Coalition has responded to ANP and stated that the questions that were deleted didn't follow the guidelines that they had set up. A visit to the website finds them continually deleting what might be very tough questions for Hillary. Besides, who's the Open Debate Coalition to decide what's most important to you? Is the Open Debate Coalition's job to pick what questions the American people want answered from the candidates? And if so, doesn't that immediately destroy their argument that they are an open debate coalition? And looking at the Open Debate Coalition's interesting design seen at the top of this story, we see a combination of Clinton's arrow and color scheme, as well as the interesting lightning bolts also seen in many special forces patches. We also notice the loudspeaker on the computer screen. Lightning bolts, however, above effectively represent the percentage of people who support Hillary within the darker coloring of the circle versus the 65% people who hate her within the. As has been pointed out, the design also reminds some of the communist propaganda artwork, as does much of the artwork surrounding Clinton's campaign, as it becomes more and more clear every day hates America and will likely bring about our final demise if somehow she gets 100 Pennsylvania Avenue. As we hear in the second video below, according to Russian President Vladimir Putin, are often rigged. Is there any reason that we should think that the debates aren't, especially after what Lester Holt showed us on national TV last night? The mere fact that Open Debate Coalition is now that are most important to American people tells us everything we need to know. We ask our readers here at ANP to attempt to ask this allegedly open forum questions that are most important to you. Please let us know up there, and you're more than welcome to share the links to your questions in the comment section below to help them as much as possible. As for myself, if I had the opportunity to ask two candidates questions, they're quite simple. Number one, Clinton. 30 plus years of death, destruction, and war, if your campaign message is for the world to love one another. Number two, Trump. How will you combine the security necessary for Americans to move in 2020 with the Trojan horse of terror that has been allowed into our country while protecting our beloved and cherished civil liberties? Either of those simple questions answered. Once again, we'd like to ask the Open Debate Coalition what makes them think that they have the right to determine what's most important to the American people, and do they realize so many good questions, they've proven themselves to be exactly what they were allegedly created to stand up against? Much like Clinton, who stated she'd like to confiscate American guns without due process, as heard in the first video below, the Open Debate Coalition has taken it upon themselves to censor the American people while standing up for tyranny. In the second video below, we hear why it's quite likely that the next U.S. president will be elected by hackers, most likely coming from within the the NSA and the Department of Homeland Security. While in the last video below, we hear Vladimir Putin previously warning that the U.S. election might once again be stolen, as other elections here in America have clearly been won by the candidates who lost. With Donald Trump 15 questions last night and Clinton only 2, and now have 100% proof the next presidential debate is now being fixed as well. Why wouldn't they fix the election in just a few weeks when the globalists clearly have everything at stake? Existence of America is on the line. And there's some videos that you can look at in that article. That one up. And the next one we have here is off of BizPack Review. For the little hamster to catch up to me. He got little tiny legs. This one says Washington State Mall killer, not a U.S. citizen, but voted 3 times thanks to idiotic liberal policy. Are being charged of the Burlington Mall gunman in Washington State who took 5 innocent lives before being captured by police. Taking special note of is that although the shooter, Seaton, legally immigrated to the United States from Turkey, he wasn't yet a citizen. That didn't appear to stop him from voting, however, 3 times. He will face additional possible charges. These federal NBC affiliate King 5 News, Seaton accompanied his parents to the United States as a child, remains a legal resident but not a citizen. To vote in 2014, cast ballots in 3 elections since then, including Washington president primary. How does this stuff happen? I mean, is anybody doing their job to check stuff, or, you know? The next one we have here is off of Breitbart.com. And I'm waiting for the hamster. Okay, Obama administration brings in 12,500 Syrian refugees this year with last-minute rush. With 2 days remaining in fiscal year 2016, the Obama administration has brought 12,571 Syrian refugees, far exceeding its original stated goal of 10,000 for the year. The Obama administration is pressing ahead despite polls that show a vast majority of voters oppose increasing the number of Syrian refugees by rushing 831 Syrian refugees during the month of September. To the Democrat, or according to the Department of State's interactive website, the administration continues to bring Syrian refugees at that rate each month the fiscal year 2017, which begins on Saturday. The total number of arrivals from the war-torn country would exceed 21,000. 99% of these Syrian refugees, 470 of 12,571, are Muslim. 101 of the 12,571 are Christians. One official working for powerful resettlement agencies who receives more than $1 billion annually from the federal government to resettle refugees recently said he expects the Obama administration will bring between 20,000 and 30,000 Syrian refugees into the United States in fiscal year 2017. Increase in Syrian refugees comes 1 day after the Obama administration official testified before Congress that we anticipate that the number of Syrian refugees arriving in fiscal year 2017 will be above 12,500, but I don't have a number other than that. Another official admitted to Senator Ted Cruz, Republican of Texas, at this hearing that there is no reliable security database for vetting Syrian refugees, and that Obama administration officials have merely been relying upon the word of arriving refugees that they are not terrorists. Make your blood run cold. According to a statement released by Cruz's office while questioning State Department Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary Simon Henshaw, Department of Homeland Security DHS Director Leon Rodriguez, and Department of Health Director Robert Carey. Senator Cruz specifically noted that the administration's willful blindness to radical. We got something running here. Get that shut off.
And the largest planet.
Oh, now stop it.
Someone we haven't heard from.
Stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it.
Anyone else?
Stop it. I hate it when it does that. Gee whiz. Try to find where I left off. Abruptly. Ted Cruz. Try to get this to me a little bit. That ad messed everything up. Okay. There we go. It says Senator Cruz specified noted that administration willful blindness of radical Islamic terrorism has prevented Christian refugees from the Middle East from escaping the genocide of ISIS and has also seriously undermined counterterrorism efforts in the United States. Moreover, during an exchange with Senator Cruz, Director Rodriguez publicly stated that refugee applications can be approved based solely on the applicant's testimony without any documentation. Cruz says, is it true or false that the testimony of the applicant alone can be sufficient for approval? Rodriguez says, where the testimony is not necessarily corroborated by documents. I am acknowledging that, yes, testimony can be the basis for the grant of a refugee. Will remain in office for only the first 3.5 months of fiscal year 2017. Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton has said that if she is elected, she will increase the number of arriving Syrian refugees from 10,000 annually to 65,000 each year. Okay, I'm going to repeat that. Presidential candidate Hillary Clinton has said that if she is elected, she will increase the number of arriving Syrian refugees from 10,000 annually to 65,000 each year. We don't have jobs for the American people now. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump has said he wants to reduce the number of refugees arriving overall and specifically pause the arrival of any Syrian refugees. On Wednesday, Congress passed a stopgap spending measure that will keep the federal government operating from October 1st to December the 9th. It was not immediately clear what funding level is included in the temporary spending measure. Year 2015, 70,000 refugees arrived. Year 2016 to date, a total of 84,870 refugees have arrived, a total of 12,516 in September. At that rate, more than 145,000 refugees will arrive in the United States in fiscal year 2017. The administration has proposed allowing 110,000 refugees to enter the United States in fiscal year 2017. And agencies have lobbied for 200,000 for Syrian refugees' arrival in fiscal year 2016 to date, according to the Department of State's interactive website. California at 8, Michigan at 1,374, Texas 912, Arizona 833, Pennsylvania 745, Illinois 727, Florida 642, New York 637, North Carolina 603, Ohio 504. Michigan received 481 Syrian refugees in fiscal year 2016, more than 40 states. County Executive L. Brooks Patterson has said he intends to sue the federal government to stop the resettlement of refugees in the country on the grounds that it has failed to comply with the Constitution clause of the Refugee Act of 1980. Here you have that article. The next one we have is off of Breitbart.com. Hamster, bring her on up here. It says here, U.S. presidential candidate Hillary Clinton has named German Chancellor Angela Merkel as her favorite world leader, choosing specifically to praise her record on the migrant crisis, despite her policies on opening Europe's borders, now providing a source of immense regret for her party and Germany. The comments were question and answer session on board Mrs. Clinton's campaign airplane in Chicago yesterday, when a member of the press asked what the presidential candidate's favorite world leader is, initially leaving her answer quite open. I like a lot of the world leaders. Mrs. Clinton then settled on Germany's imperiled Chancellor Angela Merkel. She told members of the press, one of my favorites is Angela Merkel because I think she's been an extraordinary strong leader during difficult times in Europe, which has obvious implications for the rest of the world, and most particularly our country, reports Politico. Turning at episodes in Merkel's career, the most damaging to her reputation into positives would be President continued. Her leadership and steadiness on the Euro crisis and her bravery in the face of the refugee crisis is something that I am impressed by. I've known her for a long time. She and I have known each other back to the 1990s. I've spent a lot of time with her, and I hope I'll have the opportunity to work with her in the future. Clinton's specific highlighting of Merkel's handling of the migrant crisis, a major political and social upheaval across Europe, more responsibility for than a leader, may cause concern, given Clinton's own position on mass migration. A promise to welcome Syrian refugees to the United States made headlines earlier this year when she vowed to increase the number of Syrian migrants admitted by 550%. Mrs. Clinton to go big on immigration to the United States, and her similarities to Angela Merkel were noted by Breitbart London editor-in-chief Raheem Kassam in January when he told radio host Sean Hannity 1.5 million, Hillary would make 20 million. This is what you need to be concerned about. If Germany seems like a long way away, it's really not. If it's happening in Western Europe today, it's happening in America tomorrow. Considered the most powerful woman in Europe, person of the year, Angela Merkel enjoyed the unassailable position in German politics, presiding over a grand coalition and maintaining some of Europe's strongest poll ratings for a national leader. Yet the migrant crisis significantly damaged her standing, with Merkel's center-right Christian Democratic Party slipping in the polls and the insurgent alternative for Germany surging in the recent elections. The migrant crisis has had a knock-on affect border European policies, with concern about mass migration helping to push the United Kingdom out of the European nation, or I'm sorry, out of the European Union in this year's referendum, and previous European project stillhearts like Hungary and Poland, to the point of open rebellion against Brussels in order to prevent the forced relocation of so-called refugees in their nations. Questions yesterday, Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump also selected Angela Merkel, despite having regularly course of his campaign, praising her skill as a world leader. He qualified his remarks by criticizing her over the migrant crisis, saying he was very disappointed in her performance. Mr. Trump called Merkel's decision to welcome millions of migrants to the European Union a mistake. And the next article we have here is off of AlanBWest.com. It says, whoa, Hillary video surfaces that has liberals scrambling. Politicians, Hillary Clinton has been on political scene long enough that she's flip-flopped on flip-flopping. have conveniently changed with public opinion over the years, whether it be on gay marriage, NAFTA, the Keystone Pipeline, gun control, war. She can't seem to keep a consistent stance on anything. Ironically, one of those issues on which she's flip-flopped is one that would have had her branded a racist, xenophobe, been Donald Trump. Caller, Thursday marks the 10-year anniversary of the day Hillary Clinton voted in favor of building a 700-mile fence along the Mexican border. I'll read that again. Thursday marks the 10-year anniversary of the day Hillary Clinton voted in favor of building a 700-mile fence along the Mexican border. So yeah, you heard that right. Intended to stop illegal immigration. The Secure Fence Act of 2006's stated purpose was to check the flow of illegal immigrants, drugs, and other illegal goods into the U.S. by erecting double-layer fence along the large swath of the border. The law also generally increased funding for border security, authorizing funds for Department of Homeland Security, DHS, to purchase cameras, drones, and other assets. At the time, Hillary Clinton said the law was the only possible fix to seeming endless torrent of illegal immigrants entering the U.S. There isn't any sensible approach except to do what we need to do simultaneously, secure the borders with technology and personnel, physical barriers if necessary in some places, she told the Council on Foreign Relations. And I agree. At the time, providing a stronger barrier to illegal entry wasn't quite as controversial, and the measure was able to easily pass Congress and get President George W. Bush's signature on September 29th, 2006. The measure passed the Senate by an 80-19 margin, with even Democrats voting 26-17 in favor. Like Clinton, Obama also voted in favor of the fence. Clinton has defended her prior vote by saying her vote helped to secure the border, but now no further construction is needed because the border has been secured. There is little evidence that this is the case, though its 2007 amendment gave DHS leeway to substantially weaken the fence so that it was much less effective at blocking crossings. Even now, hundreds of thousands of people illegally cross the U.S.-Mexico border each year and drop 2000s, but still an immense number. A decade later, Clinton opposes Trump finishing the job. She's mocked his beautiful wall during the Democrat primary debates and has stated that we should imagine a tomorrow where instead of building walls, we're breaking down barriers. What we have here is off of Rick Wells' U.S. and it says, Dick Morris, Obama loyalty to Saudis from college days may explain the veto. Morris believes that there may have been more to the veto of the bill that would allow families of 9/11 victims to sue Saudi Arabia than whatever excuses he was giving about setting a precedent for international suits against the U.S. or any other baloney he expected us to swallow. Obama knew veto would be overridden when he did it, so it would seem to be an irrational action for him to take in the first place, Morris said, or Morris asks. So the question is, why was Obama so loyal to Saudi Arabia that he endangered his presidential prestige by voting or vetoing a bill that, even though he knew that it would possibly be overridden? The answer may lie deep in Obama's past. There's evidence, says Morris, that Obama's tuition at law school and perhaps in college may have been paid for by the Saudi royal family. Morris detailed how there was an article in the Chicago Tribune written by Valerie Jarrett's dad, a columnist for the paper, saying that Saudis had established a fund for the education of young American black men. It was part of an effort to encourage what Morris describes as Black Muslim initiative in the United States. Is he inferring that Obama is not actually the Christian he's claimed to have been and that he's actually a Muslim? That's a shocking development that nobody could have possibly seen coming. Could that have been any impact on his Islamification of the United States, jihad, and the attitude of the regime in overlooking the Islamic component of Islamic terrorism. Mr. Morris relays a story told to him by his friend and mayoral candidate for New York, who was contacted by Dr. Khalid al-Mansour, a representative for one of the wealthiest men in the world, also a Saudi. The point of the call was to get a really talented genius, Hussein Obama. Sutton used his connections to get Obama admitted. Sutton inferred that the two Saudis probably followed it up by giving him a significant gift of free tuition. Morse describes his source, Percy Sutton, as a very significant figure who would never make stuff like this up and believes the story deserves investigation. BND is a source for more information. Video in this if you want to watch that one. And the next one is off of news.com. It says here, Malheur defense starts with a bang. This is out of Portland, Oregon, with our patriots that are being held down there. It says, today began the defense case of the Malheur protest trial in Portland. The jury heard 40-minute audio recording of a call between FBI investigator Christopher Liu and Ammon Bundy. Bundy explained to Liu how the protesters were cleaning the refuge, making repairs, and working with the community. Estimate about 1,000 community members had come to the refuge and shared information. One of the most prominent stories that Ammon shared on this call was how the fires have been so destructive to them and how it appears that the Bureau of Land Management is only there to make money on the fires. They're not there to put the fires out, Bundy explained. He then went on to give statistics on poor management of the BLM versus the local volunteer fire group. They have a track record of keeping the fires down to less than 1,000 acres when the volunteers are on it. But when the Bureau of Land Management is on it, there's hundreds of thousands of acres. Another powerful witness was Sheila Warren, an elder with the Confederate tribes of Silence. He testified that after hearing news reports of what was happening at Malheur, she decided to investigate the events herself. She was very concerned for the reported abuse of the Paiute artifacts on January 24th and spent several hours overall. Warren testified that she went into the office building and never saw damage. The people were respectful. The refuge was clean. The general atmosphere was open and responsive. She also testified that she never saw any guns during her time there. This part of her testimony was important because she said that she specifically looked for weapons due to the media reports that the artifacts were not being abused, and to reach the Burns Paiute tribal chair, Charlotte Roderick, though she was unsuccessful. After leaving the refuge and returning home, Warren testified of a cell phone call she received from FBI agent Ronnie Walker. He did not immediately identify himself to her, but did attempt to bully her into talking to him. Walker told this tribal elder that she did not have a choice but to talk to him, and she was made to feel as if she did something wrong by visiting the refuge. Judge Anna Brown did not want to let the jury hear this information, but Tiffany Harris, Shauna Cox's attorney, did a wonderful job in questioning and getting the information presented. Warren was able to present the fact that she felt threatened by Agent Walker. There have been several FBI agents testifying during this trial. Ronnie Walker has been treated very special by the court in that he has been allowed to sit through each day in the courtroom listening to all the testimony before he himself testified repeatedly. Not even the other agents have received that privilege. Certainly no regular citizen witnesses the same benefit. That isn't the only unusual behavior by the FBI during this trial. Agent Lapp is prime example of the disrespect the FBI has for the jury and these proceedings. He was assigned to the case in November 2015. However, this trained investigator was not able to recall most of the details which he was questioned. He could not remember whose Facebook accounts were being reviewed other than Ammon's. He couldn't even remember when he started watching these accounts. About the government informants at the refuge, his memory got even worse. He couldn't remember how many informants there were, or who they were, or how much about them in general. He was finally prompted to reveal that he saw a written proposal to pay Mark McConnell for being a government informant. Several agents claimed not to recall specifics of their investigation except when prompted by their 302 reports. These reports are written summaries they fill out about witness interviews. It seems to me when they are called to testify, they should at least review their notes, reports, or even case files to prepare for their testimony. Too many times today, they appeared incompetent by falling back on the "I do not recall" answers. Another big day for the defense. Sheriff David Ward will return from Harney County. Reverend Franklin Graham is also expected to testify, as well as the possibility of Ammon Bundy taking the stand. Judge Anna Brown has begun to push the defense to make minimal case and wrap it up by early next week. And they are not in court on Friday, so 2 days this week, maybe 2 days next week. It is dramatic shortening of the evidence. There is a video that the defense wants to admit and show the jury, but speculation is running that Judge Brown will not allow it, as it will lengthen the case. Yes, she can be very intimidating to attorneys. However, their future does not trump these defendants' freedom. I hope they get their full day in court. The article we have is off of the PeteSantillyshow.com Guerrilla Media Network. It says, GMN exclusive. Ryan Payne says Mark McConnell most likely received $25,000 for his role as informant during the Malheur. And there is a conversation here. It's DCSO4 says, okay, and do you remember who was briefed to you as far as the white vehicle? Who's who in the white vehicle? Officer 7 says, yes, mostly. I know for sure. I remember being told that Finicum was in the white vehicle, and I believe Ammon's brother, Ryan, or Brian Bundy, and I recall knowing from the briefing that Ammon would be in the Jeep with Buddha, the person I know as Buddha. DCSO4 says, Officer 7 says, I don't know his real name, or I can't remember it, and I didn't recognize the name of the driver. DCSO4 says, okay, and Officer 7 says, and I can't even recall the driver's name now. Sounds like Officer 7 was a little nervous, doesn't it? To you? Okay, it says the driver's name is Mark McConnell, and he wasted no time to go on the defensive when news spread on social media that according to the testimony of Oregon State Trooper Jeremiah Beckert, he was the informant who gave the OSP FBI the logistics and support they needed to ambush that led to the death of Lavoy Finicum and arrest of Ammon Bundy, Ryan Bundy, Shauna Cox, Ryan Payne, and Brian Cavalier. Those closest to McConnell say Mark denies having worked with law enforcement to make possible the ambush that would lead to one man's death and the incarceration of occupation leadership. McConnell's official stance was he did not do it, and Oregon State Trooper Beckert lied on the stand. While McConnell refused to speak with me for the purpose of writing this article, he has spoken to many about what he says was a radical idea being formed at the refuge, and readily admits he did inform law enforcement and the FBI of plans to kidnap Sheriff David Ward's children and use explosives found on the refuge to blow up the Harney County Courthouse. Of Lavoy Finicum, I spoke with McConnell in room 123 at the now infamous Silver Spur Motel in Burns, Oregon. I asked him point blank about how it could be everyone in the convoy was arrested except him. His reply was simply, I'm not really sure, but when they questioned me, it was pretty clear they didn't even know who I was, he said. Maybe it was because I was like all the other retards up there who couldn't stay off social media. I stayed under the radar. I had a room in town. I fed myself, and I didn't start a fundraiser. I then asked him to please explain to me how it all went down that night. He said that he and Buddha, aka Brian Cavalier, were sporadically chatting about much of nothing when they passed vehicles that immediately pulled out and began to follow them. There was some contention between him and Cavalier, he says, because a woman Cavalier thought of as his girlfriend was giving him, Mark McConnell, a lot of attention, and Buddha wasn't very happy about that. He said, so we really didn't have much to say to each other. I wasn't really paying much attention to what was going on around us. And then suddenly Cavalier says, oh, shit, and sits straight up. And that's when I saw them sitting there on the side of the road. McConnell then told me when they pulled him over, he was first to exit the Jeep and that he told them he was armed, my hands up, turn around and walk backward to them slowly. And I did what they told me to do, because I thought, this is it. I'm going to jail. Then they put me on my knees and I spent the next 2 hours on the cold ground. They questioned me and said, and then took after. Let's try that again. They questioned me, he said, and then after they talked to me for a while, they just let me go. I mean, I guess they figured I was nobody who just got caught up in the whole thing, and that was probably because I was smart and stayed away from the cameras. And so they told me that they couldn't arrest me because they didn't have an indictment for me. To be honest, I can't really tell you why I wasn't arrested. Conversation, I used the word ambush to describe the event that took place in Highway 395, and that's when McConnell lost his composure with me. He became very angry with me for using the word ambush. It wasn't an effing ambush, he scolded. It was a legal effing stop, and people need to stop calling it that. And you want to know something else? If Lavoie had rushed me like he did those guys, I probably would have shot him too. I spoke with Mark McConnell. Ken Rhodes, aka Orange Hat Man, stood silently in the room with me and listened to Mark's version of the event. When Mark left, Ken turned to me and immediately said, that so-and-so is working with feds. I'll bet my life on it. I told Ken then, I have said it many times after, I don't know about working with them, but he sure is hiding something. In March of 2016, I contacted Mark McConnell's friend, Melvin Lee, not because I wanted information about McConnell, but because he had put out a very passionate video claiming that some of the women whose husbands had been incarcerated were being overlooked in fundraising efforts online. He challenged us to all pick up the slack and help these women out. I called him to get the information he had on the families most in need. Mr. Lee was angry. He said that he had gone to the refuge to try to talk to Ammon Bundy into leaving the refuge, and that Ammon would not listen. My conversation with Melvin Lee soon turned to Mark McConnell. Melvin Lee was the first person to tell me that Mark had gone to the refuge a second time against his advice and said he did it because he felt that Ryan Payne was becoming dangerous and had added a radical element to the occupation. He told me that Payne suffered from a severe form of PTSD, and his influence of the men up there worried both him and Mark McConnell. Mark told Melvin Lee that he had supposedly overheard Jason Bloomgren, aka Joker, or Joker J, I guess it is, talking about plans to kidnap Sheriff David Ward's children and blow up the Harney County Courthouse. He also told me that Mark went up there to specifically keep a watchful eye on Payne and take him out if he made one step toward carrying out that plan. Payne says now in hindsight that he should have listened to Jason Patrick, along with longtime friend and co-occupier at the Mauer Refuge. Jason just didn't like the guy from the moment he stepped foot on the refuge, says Payne. Payne cannot remember who actually introduced him to or told him about Mark McConnell, but he knows they became acquainted during the incarceration of Andrew Tesmorsi, a United States Marine who had been jailed by Mexican authorities for accidentally carrying weapons over the border. He says that looking back on it, with and liked McConnell, who told him he was a United States Marine who had transitioned to the Army and that they had many things in common. He struggled to find people who were willing to come to Oregon to help with the protest, and so we all just started calling the contacts in our phones. McConnell was one of those contacts in mine, he said. Is because of Mark's military training, work on the border, and willingness to be there at the refuge, he was quickly assigned to personal security for Ammon Bundy. When I told Ryan about the excuse McConnell was using to justify his becoming an informant, Payne said it just simply not true. Like everything else concerning McConnell, this whole story about kidnapping plans and blowing up buildings just doesn't make any sense. If what Mark is saying were the truth, then my arrest would have been about something much different. It wouldn't have been about that and not a conspiracy to impede BLM and Fish and Wildlife from doing their duty. Mark didn't come up there to stop some radical plan. He came there to do just what he said, and that was to watch me and report back to the FBI like he has been doing for the past 2 years. That he was running late on the afternoon of January 26, 2016. He had been out on the refuge with Victoria Sharp, showing her around. She had only been there for a couple of days. When they made their way back to the refuge, McConnell was agitated and in a panic. I had never seen him like this before, he said. He was yelling at everyone about getting on the road and was very upset because he thought they were going to be late. We followed before we left the refuge for these meetings, and McConnell was just screwing everything up. He insisted that we all go together and that Ammon ride in the lead car with him. The truth is, Ammon had not planned to go with us to the meeting. He wanted to leave later because he was always the last speaker, and he had some things he wanted to take care of at the refuge, and said he would meet us there later. McConnell was having a fit. He was persistent that Ammon just had to go now and ride with him. At the last minute, I think Victoria decided to go with Mark and was very unhappy about that. It was all just so hectic and confusing that we skipped over our routine. The last thing we always did before we left the refuge was pray, and this time, because Mark was acting so out of control and pushing everyone so hard, we didn't do it. We made was not saying that prayer. Maybe if we just forced McConnell to slow down and said that prayer, God would have told us not to go. Payne says that the discovery he and his attorneys learned that at least 2 informants had received a sizable amount of money for their part at Malheur. One check was cut for $25,000 and the other was for $10,000. He doesn't know if McConnell got them both or if there was another informant, but Mark got at least one of those checks and quite possibly both. Made up this outlandish lie. The bigger the lie, the bigger the check. There was never a plan to kidnap Ward's kids, and there was never a plan to blow up buildings. Where's the proof? Did it ever come out in court? I was never questioned about it, and neither was anyone else to my knowledge, except maybe Jason Bloomgren, who stated that when asked that there have been a discussion resort plans to plant IEDs to slow down the FBI if they came after us. And to my knowledge, I don't even remember even having had that conversation with Jason, nor do I think he ever said I did. No, Mark McConnell was sent there to gather intel and cause division, and that's exactly what he did and exactly what he's still doing. We all knew the minute he was let go that he had set us all up. Them to figure out a way to get us all together so they could end the occupation, and that's exactly what he accomplished. And a good man died because of Mark McConnell. Ryan had a message for Mark at the end of the talk, and it says here, I want him to know I feel sorry for him. Done, Mark, you will always be the one who did a terrible thing and will have to live with the death of Leroy Finicum. I will never have to prove that I am telling the truth because you are the one telling the lie. Perfect plan. Read Isaiah 44 through 45. I want you to know that despite what you did, I'm not angry. I want you to know I don't hate you. I want you to know I've forgiven you. John Ritzheimer. John Ritzheimer, another co-occupier, a close friend of Payne, says there's no way Ryan Payne ever had plans to do what McConnell is saying he had plans to do. John makes it clear that with Payne on the refuge and would have known if Payne was planning such a thing. Ritzheimer also disclosed to me that it was Mark McConnell and Melvin Lee who told Ammon Bundy they had intel that a raid was going to happen any minute and that they all needed to pack up and leave the refuge or die. They both said the intel was solid, and we believed them. John now believes that McConnell purposely caused a panic that night so people would become frightened and leave, and that the first plan to take them down was thwarted when they dug in their heels and refused to budge. Some pointed out that McConnell could have done very well told them of the false plans to raid the compound just to get an idea tragedy so he could report back to the FBI. Regardless, Ritzheimer says that he believes Mark was working with the feds from the beginning. He and Melvin Lee went there to cause chaos, and that's exactly what happened, Ritzheimer says. I'll never forget that night. We were begging for help. We were begging the media to stay and help protect us, but they all left us there. Sat there all night in the cold, waiting to die in that parking lot. I tried to come up with an idea to make the media stay with their cameras, and the only thing I could think of was to get dressed in my fatigues and carry a gun, but that only worked for about an hour, and then they left. The only one willing to stay and keep his camera going was Pete Santilli. He sat in his truck between Lavoie and the road and waited for the FBI to come and hoped his camera would stop them from killing everyone. I've also heard that McConnell and Melvin Lee say they came to the refuge to rescue a girl named Kristen, but that is also a big lie. Until they got to the refuge, they didn't even know Kristen was there. I know this because I am the one who told them about her and asked them to take her back to Arizona with them when they left. They were also the ones behind Louis Arthur's big show when he came there thinking he was going to get by with beating up a sick Vietnam vet, pushing his way past the gate, screaming and yelling that he had come to rescue one of his men he had heard was in trouble. It was all a lie made up by Mark McConnell. Louis Arthur found the movement called Veterans on Patrol in Arizona and reported he was asked to leave Bundy Ranch for bad behavior. John, like Ryan, points out that the kidnappings and bombs were never mentioned by prosecutors, and if McConnell gave them evidence that proved that that was the big plan, then they would have definitely used it. John believes that Ammon Bundy should now subpoena McConnell and force the truth out of him on the stand. If what he's saying is true and the OSP and FBI are telling lies about him being the informant, then Mark should be more than willing to take the stand. Though catching up with Mark McConnell might be difficult these days. In addition to his supposed job as a trucker, Mark has also admitted being a bounty hunter. Jason Bloomgren says, or his article here says, close friend of Angela Block, former national president for the Three Percenters organization, stands by her friend and says that everything that comes out of Mark McConnell's mouth about Jason is a lie. John Ritzheimer agrees. He says, we had our times with Jason, and there did come a time when I had to tell him to take down a video or two, but it wasn't because they were violent or anything like that. We just thought they were silly and didn't represent the message we wanted to convey. I believe Jason ever told McConnell that Ryan Payne planned to kidnap kids and blow up buildings, and I don't believe Jason ever informed on us. Mark McConnell is a liar, and that's all there is to it. Jason Bloomgren was subpoenaed by the government to testify against his co-occupiers in the trial of Ammon Bundy, but he said, but says his friend Angela Block was a hostile witness who never cooperated with the FBI. At the moment, the government decided to dismiss Mr. Bloomgren as a witness and did not call him to the stand. Jason Bloomgren had no comment. Melvin Lee now says that he doesn't know what to believe about his friend Mark. I hate to think he would lie to me, he said, but I will stand by him and defend him to come after him. To tell you the truth, I'm just as confused as everyone else, he said. Melvin walked away from the organization he founded, known as the Patriot Warrior, nearly 3 months ago, and says he has also walked away from the Patriot community for good. Melvin Lee now says that he never personally saw any emails or text messages that showed any proof of Jason Blumgren had ever told Mark McConnell he was part of a plan to blow up buildings or kidnap Ward's children. He now says all he ever saw was a couple of videos that Jason did on YouTube. Those like Melvin Lee, who are still willing to defend McConnell's actions, and despite handling the situation the wrong way, he is a good man. They stand by his decisions to become an informant and say he did the right thing. McConnell's friends say now that his name has been disclosed, his life and the life of his family and friends are in danger, and that they are shocked to learn they had set him up and outed him to the public. says, I guess we should be thankful that only one man died in the end, but it's a little hard to that man was Lloyd Finicum. It was really hard for me when I first saw the discovery. I became very emotional, thinking that the people I had known for so long could be capable of kidnapping children or blowing up someone's house. Even war didn't deserve that. And the government didn't move forward with the narrative, and more discovery was released. It was clear that the person behind the information was Mark McConnell, and that it was all a very dangerous fabrication. It appears to me that McConnell purposely misled, making it was worse. I shudder when I think of how many lives could have been lost because of his bullshit fairy tale. Grasty reacted the way they did. No wonder the enormous buildup of forces that were preparing to go to war in Burns, Oregon, who are holding McConnell's hand and giving him credit right now, especially those of you that were on the refuge with this guy, to understand that Mark McConnell was literally trying to set up a situation that would cause the FBI to attack that refuge and kill everyone in it, including you. Mark McConnell was feeding them lie after lie after lie after lie. And he almost single-handedly created another Waco. That's by Pete Santilli. Next one we have here. Wait for the little hamster to catch up. This is off of Up Rocks. And it says, I can't make this stuff up, okay? This will be your chuckle for the day. We'll get the chuckle going here. It says, creepy clowns spotted in New Jersey are now going after children with swords. Can you imagine? Creepy clown sightings have reached an all-time high, with these red nose popping up everywhere from South Carolina to Kentucky to Green Bay, Wisconsin, while others so desperate to on clown fever have managed to get themselves arrested, calling in false clown sightings. Even Stephen King has been forced to comment on clown shenanigans. For the most part, so far, the clowns we've heard of have been mostly just content and menacing. However, it seems as though some clowns are becoming emboldened because in a recent rash of activity in the town of Phillipsburg, New Jersey, clowns have now reportedly been spotted actually chasing after children. Phillipsburg Police Captain Robert on Tuesday that there had apparently been 4 sightings over the course of just 2 days. Need a society living in fear. We're still a whole month away from Halloween. Was about 8 p.m. Sunday in Walters Park when 3 clowns allegedly came out of the woods and chased a child. 3 more were reported Monday, and Warren County Community Stretner said. About 5 p.m., someone was seen dressed as a clown on Hudson Street. At 7:45 p.m., a jester holding some kind of a sword reportedly ran after a child on Schaefer Avenue. And about 9:30, a dark-colored truck was seen driving down Mercer Street with multiple clowns hanging out the windows, according to police. Similar sightings just across the river in Pennsylvania's Lehigh Valley, including an incident in Northampton also on Monday in which 3 people dressed as clowns chased down a group of children near an elementary school about 3:15 p.m., but it's unclear if the 2 incidents were related. Stetner advises parents to talk to their children about walking in groups, and if you see somebody in a clown mask, don't talk to them, which are words I think we can all live by. But I'm not done yet. I got another one. I cannot make this stuff up. This one is off of WCPO.com, and apparently it's got some playing on it that I'm trying to get stopped. Shut up. Shut up. There we go. This is WCPO.com. It says, Franklin woman calls police, says she was chased by a clown near her home. Now, this is Franklin, Ohio. Far from me, really. Oh, maybe about 100 miles, maybe. Anyway, it says, it sounds like something out of a nightmare, but apparently it's real. A Warren County woman reportedly being chased by a clown. She called Franklin police after she got home. Stokian Drive apartment police said on Wednesday. I just got home from work, got out of my car. I've heard so much about this. I didn't know this was actually true, but I just got chased by a clown up to the door of my apartment, the caller told police. The clown made no threats, the caller said. The clown was wearing white and a plastic mask, the caller said. Cheryl Smith, a neighbor of the woman who was chased, said she just couldn't understand a person to behave that way. Take out of it or get out of it. I don't understand, she said. It's awful, especially little kids looking forward to Halloween. Police said they would like to discourage people from frightening strangers. You think?
Well, and the video that was posted online caused panic.
Oh my goodness, would that woman shut up?
Now police want to know who
can't get her to hush. I don't know where she's coming from. I can't find her on here to hush her. Oh, for goodness sakes, lady. I wanted to read the rest of this article. Oh, there she is. Okay. 15 of videos in these things, ads all over them. Okay. I'll read that part again. Police say they would like to discourage people from frightening strangers. This is childish and dangerous for everyone involved. And I'll be dogged if that woman won't shut up. Hush, lady. Hush. My goodness. She got too much to say. Okay. This is childish and dangerous for everyone involved, Franklin Police Chief Rush Whitman. Well, she starts up every time I start to talk. Hush. Maybe she's a clown. Oh, it's childish and dangerous for everyone involved, Franklin Police Chief Russ Whitman said. Even if the goal of these incidents is only harassment and not harm, it could still have tragic consequences. Happens to chase an elderly person and they fall and hit their head or break a hip, that's serious criminal charge, he said. If they fall and have a heart attack, that's even more serious. Reports of creepy clowns have been popping up across the country recently. In Gallatin County, Kentucky, the sheriff said consulted with the FBI and Department of Homeland Security after a clown threat kept half from county schools on Tuesday. Seriously. Again, just so you hear that again. Reports of creepy clowns have been popping up across the country recently. In Gallatin County, Kentucky, the sheriff said he consulted with the FBI and Department of Homeland Security after a clown threat kept half home from county schools on Tuesday. The Gallatin County Sheriff's Department announced Wednesday by Facebook that they believed person responsible for sending the school threats, but the investigation was ongoing. And here's what this thing says here in the Facebook post that the Gallatin County Sheriff's Department put on. It says, during the last few days of this investigation over the threats of our school, part of my investigation led me to a juvenile, and for the record, that juvenile that several people sent me pictures of has nothing to do with the threat that was made against our school. Process of elimination, the young man has been cleared of any wrongdoing. The Gallatin County Sheriff's Office, with the help of school staff, has identified the creator of the account that posted the threat against our school. There are still a lot of work to do in order to complete the investigation. Several agencies help with the extra security at our schools, and I want to thank everyone there for their help. And I will shut that site down so we stop listening to that foolishness. But oh my goodness, all I can say is starts trying to chase me, I'm too old to run. And run from you. You just better bring it, baby, because this old gal can beat the hell out of you, and we'll see how funny you think that is, Mr. Clown. You better pick your battle, honey. Oh my goodness. I mean, I could not help but bring that stuff to you because, you know, coming Halloween and you're going to see some clowns around, but, you know, for these scary ones and stuff that think they're going to cause some kind of a disturbance, well, they better think again with me because that ain't going to work. Scarier than you are. The next one that we have here, this is your feel good. Teen told he'd never stand again stands for the first time during the national anthem. And this is off of Conservative View. It's here. Doctors were sure he'd never stand again, possibly, let me try it again, possibly regulated to a permanent. In 2013, the high school football player was walking along the highway when he was hit by an 18-wheeler. Miraculously, Baker lost a leg and sustained a heavy brain trauma. 3 years of medical attention, therapy, and peerless persistence, 19-year-old Wesley Baker stood for Old Glory and the Star-Spangled Banner during Friday night's football game at Conway High School. It was the first time he'd been able to stand since his accident. It feels like a dream. I asked God for 3 years when his accident took place. I said, God, please let my son walk again and talk again. And day by day, he's shown me miracles, his mother, Deborah Phipps, told WKRC. He's worked hard. He's lost his leg, and he's had to sit down. But now God is giving him the strength to stand up. And we all need to stand up for America, she said. There's a video in this if you would like to see this young man standing for the Star-Spangled Banner. It does your heart good to know that every day it takes a lot of determination, no matter what you are facing. And if this young man, with all of his injuries, can fight to survive, so can you, no matter what it is you're facing. It's the last day of September. We won't see you back here again until Monday, and who knows what's going to go on with this internet thing. I've been told that nothing happened right away, they don't think. We'll see. We'll see what the future holds. Hopefully, we'll be back here Monday with the news. And I want everybody to have a wonderful weekend. I want you to get out and enjoy nature. I want you to get out there and kick your shoes off, put your feet down in the grass, take you a deep breath of fresh air, balance yourself, and enjoy what you've been given. Have a great weekend. Bye.